positive and negative fractions, we're just going to do a review of previous grades and review just multiplying and multiplying fractions. And just so everything makes sense and we're not just shuffling around symbols, let's do some diagrams. So, example 1, draw diagrams to represent these products. Start with a nice, easy one. 3 times 2. Okay, and hopefully you guys remember from elementary school that 3 times 2 means 3 groups of 2 or 2 groups of 3. So I'm going to do 3 groups of 2. So there's a group of 2. There's a group of 2. And there's a group of 2. And obviously I've got 6 little pizzas there, or whatever you want to call them. So 3 times 2 equals 6. Sometimes I represent groups by drawing a loop around them. In this case, because we're moving towards fractions, I'm going to do this just by drawing the groups as kind of separate. Okay, next one. 8 times a half. Okay, so in this case, we've either got 8 groups of a half or half a group of 8. So these are a little bit more interesting. So let's draw both of these. So first one, let's do 8 groups of a half. So here's my whole pizza, and there's half a pizza. So I'm going to have 8 of those. So there's my 8 groups of a half. And obviously if I were to rearrange this half and that half would be a whole pizza. So I'd have 4 whole pizzas. 8 times a half would be 4. Okay, the other way to think about it is half a group of 8. So in the same way we had the whole pizza and just shaded in what we wanted, I'm going to start out with 8 empty pizza pans. So there's my group of 8, and now I want pizza in half of those. So I'm going to shade in half of them. I'm going to put pizza in half of them. So that's another way we can see that 8 times a half is 4, because half a group of 8 is 4. Okay, let's have a look at C. A half times a half. Okay, this time I want half a group of a half, and obviously if I say it the other way around, it's still half a group of a half. Okay, I find it's more useful to use rectangles and squares and stuff with these multiplying fractions than pizzas like we've been using for the adding and subtracting. So I'm going to start, and I'll lightly shade in this half and call this a, I don't know, square pizza. Some places sell square rectangular pizzas. Okay, so there's my group of half. And now I want half of that. Well, I'm going to cut it this way and shade that in dark. Okay, so there's my half of a half. What fraction of the whole is this? You might be tempted to think it's 1 over 3, because there's 3 areas here, and we've shaded in one of them, but they all need to be the same size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pizza cutter and put a dotted line there to show that if we had the whole pizza to start with, we'd have 4 equal pieces. So a half of a half is a quarter. And if you think about money, if you've got half a dollar and then you take half of that, it'd be a quarter, like the coin a quarter. So a half times a half is a quarter. Okay, let's do another diagram here for D. We've got 2/3 times 3/4. And again, I'm going to start out with, so depending on how we want to think about this, let's think about this as 2/3 of 3/4. So we're going to start with 3/4 and then take 2/3 of it. You could do it the other way around if you wanted, doesn't matter. So here's my rectangular pizza, and I want 3/4 of that, so I'm going to cut it in half this way, and then I'm going to cut those halves in half. And we want 3/4 of that. Okay, so now I've got 3/4 of a pizza. Now I want 2/3 of this pizza here. So I'm going to cut that pizza into thirds up and down. And then I want 2 of those. So I'm going to shade in two-thirds. So basically I shaded in 2 of the 3 columns. So now I've got 2/3 of the original 3/4 I started with. I'm going to draw in these dotted lines to make all the pieces the same size. And now I can see I've got 6 out of 12 pizzas, which is of course a half. Okay, and one more. Got 1/3 times 4/5. And it's going to be 1/3 of 4/5. Okay, and again I'm going to start with 4/5. Notice it doesn't matter which way you do your original slices as long as the other ones are sliced the other way. So we've got our pizza cut into 5 crazy bread type looking things, and we want 4 of those because it's 4/5. And we're going to shade those in lightly because that's our original 4/5 of pizza we're starting with, and now we want 1/3 of those. So I'm going to cut that this way into 3 equal floors. You can think of it kind of like floors of a building. Sorry, those don't look very equal, but you need to pretend they are. And now we want 1 of those 3 floors. So I'm going to do the bottom floor here. So there's the bottom floor. I'll shade in those 4 and then do some little dots there to make everything the same size. So now I've got 4 slices of the 15 total. So 1/3 times 4/5 equals 4/15. Okay, and now you guys probably remember that in years past you were taught that to go 1/3 times 4/5, you go 1 times 4. That gives you this shaded area. And it's going to be over 3 times 5 is going to be the area of the whole thing. So that's where that comes from. That's why we go 1 times 4 is 4 and 3 times 5 is 15, because the 1 times 4 gives us this, the 3 times 5 gives us this. Okay, so let's do some of these without diagrams. So example 2, where the heck is that? There we go. Example 2, products. Okay, and this time we've got 5/7 times 2/3. And that's going to equal 5 times 2 is going to give us the shaded in area. 7 times 3 is going to give us the whole area, so we've got 10 slices out of 21 if we were to draw the diagram. Okay, next one, B. Got our first grade 9 question, negative 2/3 times 4/5. And it's kind of weird to think about diagrams with the negatives, so at this point we're just going to go with the fact that negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, let's have a look at C. 5/3 times 9/10. That's going to equal 45/30. And we're never going to give an answer of 45/30 because that's not in the lowest terms. We can divide top and bottom by 15. Will give us 3/2. And for practice, we can think about that as 1.5. Okay, let's do D here. D, we want to do 17/99 times 88/34. Okay, and as you guys know, I expect you guys to do these without calculators. Ooh, 17 times, I don't want to do it. I don't want to multiply 17 times 88 out long and 99/34 times 34 long. That just, let's think of a better way to do this. So let's do C again here. So you remember C was 5/3 times 9/10. Okay, and you remember we went 5/9 was 45, 3 times 10 was 30, and then we reduced it. Well, let's just think about this as 5 times 9 instead of 45, and 3 times 10 instead of 30. And now we can start simplifying without having such big numbers as 45 and 30, which is going to be especially important in D, because we don't want big numbers like that. So let's see here. 5/10 is the same as 1/2, and 9/3 is the same as 3/1. So that gets us straight to 3/2 without making the numbers any bigger. Not that big a deal for C, but for D, a really big deal. So let's do D again using that method. So we've got 17/99 times 88/34. Okay, and we know that's going to equal 17 times 88, which I don't even want to know what that is, over 99 times 34. Okay, well these are obviously, we can divide both of those by 11. So 88/99 is the same as 8/9. And 17/34 is the same as 1/2. So now on top we've got 1 times 8. And on the bottom we've got 9 times 2. Oh, that wasn't very hard at all. Oh, except for we're not done yet. We can still simplify that. I can still divide top and bottom by 2. So that's going to give me 4/9. Okay, let's have a look at E. E, we've got -3 times 1/6. Okay, and same as when we were adding fractions, it makes things easier to think about this as -3/1. Okay, and these numbers are pretty small, so I'm just going to go -3 times 1 is -3, 1 times 6 is 6, And now I can reduce that to -1/2. All right, next one, F. I think we're on F next, aren't we? Yeah, that was E. Okay. F, I've got -5/7 squared. Okay, well, squaring means times itself. So that's actually -5/7 times -5/7. But I'm going to move this negative sign from being in the middle to the top because I think that's easier to think about. So it's basically -5/7 times -5/7. Oh, and that's easy. -5 times -5 is 25. 7 times 7 is 49. Done. So just remember, squaring means times itself. Next one, G. -1 2/5 times 3 1/3. Okay, and before we can multiply these, hopefully you guys remember from last year, you need to turn these into improper fractions. I'll also remind you that when we have a negative like this, it means this whole thing's negative. So then 1's negative and our 2 slices are negative, which means equals the line above. That's going to be -7 slices. We're going to owe 7 slices of 5-slice pizza. And we've got 3 pizzas with 3 slices each. That's 9 slices. 1 more is 10/3. And these numbers are pretty big, so I'm going to rewrite this as -7 times 10 over 5 times 3. 10/5 is the same as 2/1. And I think that's all I can do. Yeah. So that's going to be -7 times 2 is -14. 1 times 3 is 3. Okay, and for practice, let's turn this into a mixed back into a mixed number. So we know our answer is going to be negative, so I'm going to put the negative there before I forget, because that's easy to forget. And 3 slices per pizza, I'm going to be able to make 4 pizzas and have 2 slices left over. Okay, one more example. Okay, H, we've got -2 2/3 and -3 1/4, or times, I should say, -3 1/4. You can remember that anytime we have brackets next to each other, it just means times. Okay, and we need to turn these into improper fractions. So 2 pizzas, 3 slices each is 6, 2 more, so I owe 8 slices of 3-slice pizza there. And here I'm going to have 12 slices there, 1 more. 13 slices of 4-slice pizza. Okay, and instead of going 18 times -13, I'm just going to write it as, 8 times -13, I'm going to write it as -8 times -13 on top, and 3 times 4 on the bottom. -8/4 is the same as -2/1. And that's all I can do, but that still saved me going 8 times 13. Okay, so on the top I've got -2 times -13 is +26. 3 times 1 is 3 on the bottom. And that, to put it into a mixed number, I can make 8 whole pizzas. That's going to take 24 slices, which means I've got 2 left over of 3-slice pizza. There you go. You guys should be ready to do your assignment now.